Is Clash of Clans broken? Let's have a discussion about that. Welcome back to the channel then, guys. I'm your host, Judo Sloth. I put out a poll on my YouTube community tab and on my Twitter page. The results were somewhat surprising. I want to discuss the comments, including my thoughts, because YouTube thought that there was only minor changes needed, but Twitter thought major balance changes were required. So I want to discuss exactly what people thought needed changing, but before we do that, we have a sponsor for today's video. I did a giveaway previously for a year of Gold Pass, and it was such a success that I'm doing it again, so you can follow me on Twitter to take part. But let's have a quick word from our sponsor who's helping to make this possible. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of aspiring classes for creative and curious people. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. There are numerous topics which could interest you, whether it be graphics design or photography, even from your phone. I personally am going to be undertaking iPhone photography, how to shoot and edit conceptual photos on your phone. The takeaway for me will be with regards to thumbnails if I am on the go. This is a staff pick from Skillshare by Amelie Satzger. Now, Skillshare is created specifically for learning, meaning there's no ads and they're always launching new premium classes so you can follow wherever your creativity takes you. And it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. The first 1,000 of my subscribers that click the link in the description will have a free premium trial to explore your creativity. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Thanks again to Skillshare, helps to support the channel, and with the opportunity of such giveaways, all of my social media links are in the description as ever. But let's take a close look at the voting numbers before we go through comments. Now, we've got to take the number of votes into account. On YouTube, there was 25,000 votes. On Twitter, there was less than 1,000, and they are separate communities. On YouTube, 32% of people thought the game was broken. Major changes needed. I think there was something else that was skewing the result here, and I will give my thoughts, but over 50% thought that there were balance changes needed. So 85% in total, and I do agree. I think balance changes are required. I'll give my thoughts specifically at the end of the video. Equally though, over 80% on Twitter thought major balance changes were required. I did give further clarification of what I was asking on Twitter. Maybe that's my fault for not understanding that much of the community might not have realized balance changes and quality of life changes mean separate things. I will try and clarify that for future videos. And if you do want to be involved with future videos like this, you can always subscribe to the channel to see my educational but entertaining Clash of Clans videos. So we've established that a lot of people think there is balance changes required. I am going to have replays in the background of some of the attacks we have been seeing lately, and I think that will give you a bit of a clue as to my thoughts, but I will go into specifics as to how I think things can be adjusted towards the end of the video. Now, the first one, let's just get it out of the way. A lot of people commented. Yeah, the Super Wizards. I think the balance needs to be adjusted due to the Super Wizard Blimp method, the Blizzard as many people call it. We have seen Barch attacks. We've also seen headhunters, mass headhunters, 3-starring bases, and let's be honest, I mean, Barch could work. In an ideal world, if the base was absolutely set up perfectly, it could work. But we've been seeing it working on numerous bases, and that really shouldn't be the case. It is the power of the Super Wizard Blimp. But what exactly should be done about it? Many people saying, well, nerf it. This video is more looking into how do we do that. I've hand-selected the comments that gave a solution to this Super Wizard nerf. The first one being to reduce its damage, and in specific, I do like the comment of reducing its secondary damage, because the Super Wizard does its initial strike 100%, then the secondary damage is 60%. Maybe that needs adjusted to 50. Or maybe even lower, 45. What they need to be careful of is nerfing the Blizzard but not the Super Wizard in itself too far. But I do think the Super Wizard is strong. Even the avalanche attacks we've seen all use the Super Wizards. So maybe a reduction in the secondary damage is a good solution. You can let me know any of your thoughts in the comments, but let's take a look at some others. I quite like the idea of reducing the hit points, especially so that a scatter shot could one-shot the Super Wizards. This would mean there's a lot more risk involved with the Super Wizard blimp. But does this nerf it too much to the point where you just couldn't use the Super Wizards? Increasing its housing space could also be a solution, because then you could not take as many Super Wizards in the battle blimp. But I don't think that's the ideal solution either, because if it was used in the right area, sometimes the Super Wizards split up, you actually lose one of them, and you can still get the value. So I'm not sure increasing the housing space would actually solve the solution. But what about this? An extra tornado trap, which I will get onto later in the video. I think more traps are a good addition, or would be a good addition to Clash of Clans. So this could be a way of baiting the battle blimp and completely messing your opponent's attack up, because if they can't get the blizzard to work, then they're going to struggle to recover. I did see some other suggestions, such as not allowing super troops in the clan castle as donations. Whilst that's a really out-of-the-box idea, and I really appreciate comments like that, I don't think they would do that, because the frustration it would then add to the game. I like to be able to use super troops in my clan castle. If I can't, that adds an element of frustration. So it is more probably trying to just get the balance of the super troop right in the first place. So we might as well just finish off my take of the Super Wizard blimp, and then we will discuss some of the other suggestions that I wasn't really expecting. I think it does require balancing, and looking at the comments, I believe the best change would be reducing its secondary damage, whilst also adding the second tornado trap, because I do think that more traps are needed. That would nerf that specific strategy and the Super Wizards in general. What I wouldn't like to see is a complete overhaul to the troop mechanics, unless it solved the problem and made sense. Many people commented saying, why not just make the chain lightning not work within an invisibility spell? I'm going to give you a bit of a Clash history lesson in order to answer that. Previously, they balanced the witch by making the skeletons no longer trigger traps and reducing the witch's range, but it was a creative way of balancing the witch. So altering mechanics is a solution to certain problems, but Clash of Clans have said previously that they don't want to make special rules. That's why they took away the ability for the Inferno Tower to prevent healing, the Tesla to do double damage on a P.E.K.K.A, or the Eagle Artillery to do triple damage on a Golem. Whilst a lot of people knew about that, it was written in the defense description, there were a lot of casual players that just didn't know about it. So they would be left scratching their heads, frustrated that a heal spell was not healing their Hog Riders when a multi-target Inferno was on them. That's why they took away those rules. So by making the Chain Lightning not work inside an invisibility spell, do you also have to alter the E-drag mechanics, because the Chain Lightning of the E-drag works through buildings, and my logic is if I turn a building invisible, it should still chain to it, because it's still there, it's just invisible. So whilst the troop, yes, will not attack that specific building, it should still chain to it, is my logic if I were planning an attack. So I personally wouldn't like to see that. I think the ideal solution probably is adjusting the damage of that secondary hit and potentially adding some traps. They could always adjust things further if it didn't actually solve the problem. I want to flash up some other comments that were made a couple of times. The clone spell. Why is it 3 spell spaces? All of the rest are 1 or 2. Can it be reduced to 2? I would have to look at the specific numbers across all of the levels for this, but I kind of agree. It's not very well used, but when it is used, it can really be beneficial. So therefore, I think just reducing it to 2 probably makes it too overpowered. They would have to reduce the number of troops that it would clone at each level, but then is it basically non-usable? If it can't really clone many troops for 2 spell space, you'd be better having it used in rare instances where it could actually be useful as 3 spell space. So that's something that the game team would have to look at specifically, but I agree, anything that is not very often used should have some adjustments. That's why the lightning spell was completely reworked. Maybe they can do something with the clone spell as well. We'll see. I mentioned that I thought there was something else skewing the result on YouTube, and I do want to mention it because I think it's important. It was all to do with lab reduction times, hero reduction times, building reduction time, basically making your base faster to upgrade. It is a balance change. Many people were requesting a lot of other things. I will try and be more specific if I do these videos in the future where I ask questions on the community tab. But basically, I totally agree. And this is something I can not assure you because I don't work for the Clash of Clans team, but they have said numerous times they always want to make sure that the game is consistent when you start to get to maximum level. And as new town halls are added, they will make the game faster. And they've done this in a number of ways. For example, magic items are something they introduced to make the game faster. Last year, they actually did 2 balance changes throughout the year whereby the game was significantly sped up for the lower town hall levels. The troops, buildings, pretty much everything were reduced in upgrade cost and upgrade time. That means that you will progress through the game faster. When I started playing Clash of Clans, it was such a grind in comparison to what it is now. I don't work for the Clash of Clans team, but I can pretty much assure you that there will be balance changes to everything mentioned here in terms of base upgrade time this year. It was done twice last year where there were major reductions in cost and time. I'm pretty sure it will happen again this year. And it's not going to be fully overhauled to the point where it's too easy and you can just max your base in a week. Nor would we want that. There's a sense of achievement in growing your base, and really, what would happen if you could just max in a week? You'd probably get bored and quit. So it's not going to happen, but I do appreciate there are certain levels where it can be frustrating. Grinding your heroes, grinding the lab, particularly I hear Town Hall 9 and 10 is where people get stuck on that grind. So maybe that's an area they do need to look into a bit more. I am sure they will. I am sure with any of the balance changes, Supercell always tend to get it right. And as I said, I will give my overall summary at the end of the video, but they always seem to adjust it in ways that I can't even imagine to keep the game balanced. So the reduction in time and cost, I can't give you an absolute guarantee because I don't work for the team, but I am more than confident that you will see some more reductions this year. Whilst there was the odd comment here and there to nerf this specific troop or buff this specific defense, I tried my best to pick the comments that I've seen a number of times, or the themes that I've seen a number of times. Super Wizard being the obvious one. I think a lot of people expected that. The reduction in cost and upgrade time more. People weren't really asking for reduction in costs. It was more time, actually. So I guess that kind of surprised me. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting answers more with regards to offense versus defense. Maybe again, that's where I need to clarify better in future videos. But there was definitely the theme of offense being more strong. We need to either nerf offense or buff defense. There's multiple ways that they could go about balancing the game. And I do agree, I think offense is strong right now. It definitely needs some adjusting. And what I will say is, whenever a new troop is released, I would like that troop to be probably more on the stronger side than the weaker side, because there's excitement about a new troop. You don't want a new troop being released, and ultimately, you can't use it because it's so weak. On the same token, I don't think they should make something so overpowered when they release it, just enough to give you that excitement and want to test it out and use it. But also what I will say is, it's near impossible for the team to have came up with every creative way that people will use this troop until it's out into the masses. And that's why, historically, we tend to see balance changes little while after an update. It needs to be long enough that base designs can kind of catch up and see if there is a direct counter to something, but also that Supercell can accrue enough data to know exactly how to adjust things, and I am more than confident that they will. I think for the 2019 winter update, it was middle of January, I want to say January 14th, that we seen a balance change. So I do think we will see a balance change potentially later this month. I think the Super Wizards have almost got to be involved with it. It's certainly what most of the community were saying to me, and I agree, is what needs adjusting. I personally don't think that the game is broken. I think it's pretty well balanced, bar the Super Wizard. I think once they get the Super Wizard adjusted, and I do also agree that I think offense is stronger than defense. I think there does need to be more of a buff to defense, I would say, rather than messing with troops, because it's pretty difficult to nerf every individual troop and every individual strategy. If offense really is overall stronger than defense, the way they have to go about that would be to buff defense. That then has an impact on all strategies, but obviously they need to be careful how they do that. I personally think to help base builders, I'm not a pro base builder, but in order to help base building, traps probably are the best route, especially when we look at the esports scene and people cannot see traps. I would personally like to see a second tornado trap. I know Darian has previously said traps are one of the most difficult things to integrate to the game, again because of the frustration aspect, but I think the tornado trap has been in the game long enough that people understand its mechanics, and another tornado trap wouldn't skew that and really get people frustrated. So I think a second tornado trap would be a good solution. Maybe some other adjustments to the defenses as well. I will say one thing I missed was the mortar being adjusted and buffing it a little bit. Maybe that's something else that could help more of the spam style strategies. But I would like to see balance changes to the Super Wizard in ways I mentioned, reduction in cost and time, and probably a bit of a buff to defense. If you want to see the video where we discussed what updates are needed, that's where we went into more of the quality of life updates. I've got it linked here, as well as the Barch 3-star attack I mentioned earlier. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for Skillshare for sponsoring the video, and I will catch you in the next one.